Ladies and gentlemen, today I'm going to tell you something that might sting a little. You see, the real tragedy isn't growing old, the real tragedy is growing old badly, and what's worse, everybody sees it happening to you. But nobody's brave enough to tell you. You complain more than you celebrate. It starts small, a few off-hand comments about the weather, the government, your joints, the noise next door. At first, people chuckle and nod politely. They understand life has handed you some heavy things, but slowly, quietly, without you even realizing it, complaining becomes the drumbeat of your conversation. Every interaction turns into a list of what's wrong, what hurts, what used to be better. You think you're just venting, you think you're just being real, but what you don't realize is that complaining repels people. It drains the room of energy, it shrinks your presence instead of expanding it. People start to dread talking to you, not because they don't love you, but because every word out of your mouth feels like a little anchor pulling them down. You've become a mirror that only reflects back problems, never possibilities. You tell yourself you're just telling it like it is, but you're really reinforcing a version of life where joy has no place and victories are overlooked. The very people you want to feel connected to are quietly pulling away because they don't want to leave your presence feeling heavier than when they came. They want to be lifted, inspired, even if just a little. But when you lead with complaints, you steal that opportunity from both them and yourself. You can't see it because complaining feels justified. You think, well, if you lived what I lived, you'd understand, and maybe that's true. But understanding doesn't change the fact that a constant focus on what's wrong erodes your spirit and makes people associate you with dread instead of delight. It's not that you don't have real challenges. It's not that you shouldn't ever talk about hardships. It's that somewhere along the way you let your struggles take center stage. You gave your complaints a microphone and silenced your gratitude. You forgot that life, even hard life, still has victories worth celebrating. Small ones, big ones, ones that nobody else may even notice, but you must. You stopped noticing sunsets. You stopped laughing at ridiculous moments. You stopped bragging about what's good. And the absence of that celebration became its own kind of ugliness, one that lingers heavier than wrinkles or gray hair. The most tragic part is that you don't even know it's happening. You think people are avoiding you because they're too busy or selfish. Or young people these days don't have respect. No, they're just tired of carrying the emotional backpack you hand them every time you open your mouth. They want to enjoy you. They want to be around your wisdom, your warmth, your insight. But if all they get is a laundry list of complaints, they start to associate your name with a sinking feeling. You deserve better than that. You've lived too much life to be remembered as a chronic complainer. There's still time to shift the narrative, to start celebrating what's left instead of mourning what's lost. But it starts by noticing and then changing the words you choose to say every single day. You stop dreaming. Somewhere along the journey, you traded your vision of the future for a scrapbook of the past. Instead of waking up excited about what could happen today, tomorrow, or next year, you settle into a loop of old stories and faded memories. You think dreaming is for the young, for the ones who still have time, for those who still believe things can be different, and because you think that way, you unknowingly lock yourself into a tiny, shrinking world. People around you feel it. They notice that your eyes don't light up with ideas anymore. They see that when conversations turn toward the future, new projects, new experiences, new adventures, you fade out. You smile politely, but you're not in the room. You're stuck in a mental museum, dusting off the same artifacts over and over. The truth is, it's not time that kills dreams, it's permission. You stopped giving yourself permission to want something bigger, something fresh, something that lights a fire under you. You started believing the lie that dreaming is childish or pointless or foolish at your age. You think you've earned the right to sit back and coast, but the soul was not designed to coast. It was made to create, to build, to expand. Without dreams, even the healthiest body starts to wilt. People notice it even if they don't say anything. They see you going through the motions, marking time instead of making moves. They hear it when you default to safe, tired topics. They feel it when your energy in the room doesn't spark curiosity or wonder anymore. Dreams aren't about grand achievements or big headlines. They're about having a reason to stretch beyond today's comfort, a reason to invest your energy into something that doesn't exist yet. Dreams could be as simple as wanting to master a new skill, as daring as planning a trip to a place you've never seen, or as personal as becoming a mentor to someone who desperately needs your wisdom. But when you stop dreaming, you rob yourself and the world of the gifts you're still capable of giving. You put a lid on your own potential, not because you can't, but because you told yourself you shouldn't. Worse, when you stop dreaming, you unintentionally teach the people around you that it's normal to give up. Your children, your grandchildren, your friends, they're watching. They're taking notes on what aging looks like. When they see you stop caring about the future, they start to wonder if growing older is just a slow death march instead of a grand new chapter. You owe it to yourself and to them to prove otherwise. To show that dreaming isn't reserved for the young, it's reserved for the living. Dreams keep your spirit young even as your body changes. They give you a reason to get up with purpose, to lean forward instead of leaning back. When you stop dreaming, you don't just get old, you get small, and you were never meant to live small. You move like you've given up. It's not just about how fast or slow you walk. It's the posture, the energy, the way you carry yourself through space. When you were younger, you walked into a room like you had a reason to be there. You stood tall, looked people in the eye, and moved with a certain confidence that made people pay attention. Now your body language tells a different story. Shoulders slumped forward, eyes down, movements hesitant and heavy. It's not always because of physical pain or limitation. It's the weight of surrender that shows before you even open your mouth. You may not realize it, but everyone notices. They see the message your body sends long before you say a word. I'm tired, I'm done, I'm just getting through the day. You think it's normal. You tell yourself it's just part of getting older. But the truth is, many people with physical struggles still carry themselves with power, with intention, with dignity. Movement is about more than muscles and joints, it's about spirit. And when you move like you've given up, it leaks out into every other part of your life. Your presence shrinks, your influence fades. People instinctively respond to energy, and when your energy says, "I don't want to be here," they take the hint. They start to treat you smaller, speak to you softer, offer less opportunity, and without meaning to, they put you on the sidelines. It's heartbreaking because it's preventable. Movement is one of the most immediate and powerful ways you can declare, "I'm still in the game." Standing up straight isn't just about posture, it's a mindset. Taking purposeful steps isn't just about balance. It's about making a statement to the world and to yourself that life hasn't beaten you. It's about deciding that as long as you're breathing, you're going to show up fully, not as a ghost of who you used to be, but as a bold, living version of who you are right now. The problem is, when you let your body communicate defeat, you start believing it yourself. It becomes a cycle. You move slowly, you feel weak. You feel weak, you act smaller. You act smaller, you think smaller. Before you know it, your life gets reduced to a series of routines instead of a series of adventures. And everyone around you picks up on that vibration. They sense it even if they can't explain it. They miss the spark you used to have. They miss the way you used to command attention without even trying. Movement is a language, and right now, yours is telling the wrong story. You don't need to sprint, dance, or do backflips. You just need to move with purpose. Walk into every room like you have something to offer, because you do. Stand tall even if it takes effort. Look people in the eye. Move like you believe your life still matters, because it does, and more than you know. You let yourself get sloppy, not just in how you dress, but in how you show up for life. You stopped paying attention to the details that once gave you pride, the way you used to take a few extra minutes to iron your shirt, fix your hair, polish your shoes. That's all gone now. Somewhere along the way, you decided it didn't matter anymore. You tell yourself it's comfort. You tell yourself you've earned the right to relax, but deep down, you know it's not freedom. It's a slow kind of surrender, a quiet admission that you think the best days are behind you, so why bother putting in the effort? What you don't realize is that everyone around you notices. They see the decline, they feel it, It's not about vanity, it's about vitality. When you let yourself get sloppy, you send a message to the world that you've stopped caring, not just about appearances, but about living with intention. You might think it's superficial, but it's not. When you were younger, the effort you put into your appearance was an act of respect for yourself, for the people you interacted with, for the opportunities that might come your way. That principle doesn't expire with age. In fact, it becomes even more important. Every time you leave the house unkempt, every time you present yourself like you're just waiting for the day to be over, you reinforce the idea that you are no longer participating fully in your own life. And it's not just your clothing, it spills over into everything. Your home gets messier, your conversations get lazier, your routines get looser, meals become microwaved instead of made, hobbies are abandoned. Health is neglected. It's like a slow erosion that starts small but ends up washing away whole parts of who you are. People around you notice the change but rarely say anything because they don't want to offend you. Instead, they just quietly adjust their expectations downward. They start seeing you as someone who's finished growing, someone who's given up on excellence, someone who's content to coast until the end. You deserve better than that. You deserve to feel sharp, alive, and proud every single day you wake up. Effort is not just for the young or the ambitious, it's for anyone who refuses to let life put them in a corner. Taking care of yourself, dressing with intention, staying sharp, those are acts of rebellion against the slow fade that tries to creep into old age. They're declarations that say, I'm still here and I still matter. Sloppiness is not about age. It's about attitude. It's about whether you see yourself as someone still worth investing energy into. Because if you don't treat yourself like you matter, how can you expect the world to? Your standards should rise with age, not fall. You've earned the wisdom to know better and the strength to do better. Your appearance, your posture, your habits, they're not just for show. They're the outer reflection of your inner commitment to living fully every single day you're blessed to have. You talk, but you don't listen. Over time, without even realizing it, you've slipped into the habit of thinking your words are more important than anyone else's. Maybe you've lived through more, seen more, survived more, and you feel like that gives you a pass to dominate conversations. You tell your stories, you share your opinions, you correct others, you offer advice, but rarely do you sit back, stay quiet, and really listen, not just to the words people are saying, but to the emotions behind them, the meanings underneath. You listen just enough to find a place to jump in with your own experience, and in doing so, you rob the people around you of the dignity of being fully heard. You don't notice how often you interrupt. You don't realize how quickly you steer the conversation back to yourself, your memories, your perspective. You think you're contributing, but what you're really doing is crowding the space. People feel it. They feel unseen, unheard, unvalued. They smile politely, nod, wait for you to finish, but inside they're disconnecting. Over time, they come to expect that talking with you will be a one-way street, a lecture instead of a dialogue. They start to pull away, not because they don't love you, but because every conversation becomes an exhausting exercise in patience rather than a genuine connection. Listening is an art you have to keep practicing no matter how old you get. Just because you have wisdom doesn't mean you've earned the right to stop learning from others. Every person you meet, young or old, has something you don't know, something you haven't lived. But when you dominate conversations, you miss those lessons. You cut yourself off from growth. You trap yourself in the past instead of staying present in the now. And worse, you send the subtle message that you value your own voice more than you value the voices of those around you. It's easy to justify it. You tell yourself, I'm just trying to help, or I'm just sharing my experience. But real help often starts with real listening, listening deeply, listening without the need to fix, to advise, to correct, to compare. Just being there, just giving someone the space to be fully themselves in your presence, that's a far greater gift than any advice you could offer. When you truly listen, you give honor, you make people feel respected, valuable, interesting. You create a space where real relationships can thrive, and paradoxically, when you listen more, people will actually be more eager to hear what you have to say. They'll value your words more because they'll know you value theirs. Talking is easy, listening is work. It requires humility, patience, and a willingness to shift the spotlight away from yourself. But that's exactly what makes it powerful. It says without words, I'm still curious, I'm still teachable, I still believe other people matter. And that spirit, that energy is something the world desperately needs, especially from those wise enough to know how rare it really is. You get stuck in back in my day syndrome. It starts off innocently a comment here, a joke there about how things used to be better. Maybe the music made more sense, the work ethic was stronger, people had more manners. You tell stories about when a handshake was as good as a contract, when kids respected their elders, when you could leave your doors unlocked at night. And those stories matter, they carry wisdom, they connect the generations. But somewhere along the way it shifts. It stops being about sharing history and starts being about rejecting the present. Instead of inspiring people with the strength of the past, you use it to criticize everything about today. People notice every time you sigh and say, "Kids these days." Every time you dismiss new technology as nonsense. Every time you roll your eyes at new trends or complain about how nobody knows what they're doing anymore. You're sending a loud message. You're telling the world that you believe its best days are already behind it. That you think the future is hopeless. That you have nothing new to learn and no new contributions to make. And that message doesn't make you seem wise, it makes you seem bitter, rigid, and out of touch. Young people especially pick up on it quickly. They hear the underlying judgment in your words, even when you think you're being lighthearted. They feel the wall you're putting up between their reality and your approval. Instead of feeling drawn to you, instead of seeking out your experience and insight, they keep their distance. Not because they don't respect your years, but because they don't want to be around someone who makes them feel small or foolish for living in a world they didn't create. The tragedy is that your experiences could be a bridge, not a barrier. You have survived changes, faced hardships, adapted to different eras, and that adaptability is something younger generations need to see. They don't need a cheerleader for everything new, but they do need a champion who shows them that growth never ends, that learning is lifelong, that strength is about flexibility, not stubbornness. When you constantly compare today to yesterday with a scowl, you trap yourself in a past that no longer exists. You miss the beauty of what's happening right now, the innovation, the resilience, the new expressions of human creativity that are unfolding every day. And you miss your chance to be a part of it, to influence it, to shape it with the wisdom you've earned instead of just criticizing it from the sidelines, getting stuck in back in my day, thinking isn't inevitable. It's a choice. You can honor your history without idolizing it. You can love your memories without resenting the present. You can be the person who says, "Let me tell you what we did and let's talk about how we can make today even better." Because the truth is, the best of your life and the best of the world doesn't have to be behind you. It can still be unfolding right in front of you if you have the heart to see it. You stop trying new things. It happens so subtly that you don't even realize it. One day you're open to a new hobby, a new recipe, a new place to visit. The next you're saying no more often than yes. You stick to the same restaurants, the same TV shows, the same circle of conversations. You convince yourself you know what you like, but the truth is you've stopped giving yourself the chance to discover what else you might love. It's not about comfort, it's about fear disguised as familiarity. Fear of feeling awkward, fear of failing, fear of not being good at something right away, and while you may not see it clearly, everyone else does. They notice your world getting smaller. They feel the way your energy starts to dull, how you seem less curious, less alive. The danger of not trying new things isn't just boredom, it's stagnation. It's the slow fading of spirit that happens when you quit stretching yourself. Your mind needs challenge, your heart needs fresh excitement. Your soul needs new colors, new experiences to stay vibrant. And when you stop feeding those needs, you don't just grow older, you grow dimmer. People around you feel it, even if they don't say it. They stop inviting you to new experiences because they already know what your answer will be. But every new thing you try, no matter how small, reignites something inside you. You remember what it feels like to be a beginner again, humble, open, growing. You don't have to love everything you try. You just have to stay open enough to keep trying. Because when you keep learning, exploring, and experiencing, you don't just add more years to your life, you add more life to your years. You let your conversations revolve around your aches and pains. Of course, they're real. Your back hurts, your knees are stiff, your eyesight isn't what it used to be. That's part of the human experience as the years go by. But when every conversation you have, whether with family, friends, or even strangers, becomes a detailed report on what's wrong with your body, people notice. They may smile, nod, and listen politely, but inside they're pulling away. They didn't come to hear another rundown of medications, surgeries, and doctor's appointments. They came to connect with you, the person, not just the list of symptoms you're living with. When your pain becomes the centerpiece of every interaction, it slowly defines how people see you. Instead of remembering your wisdom, your humor, or your kindness, they start to associate you with negativity and discomfort. And what's worse, you start to believe that your pain is the most interesting or important thing about you. You forget that there's more to you than your struggles. You have stories, passions, ideas, and experiences that are far richer than any ache you feel. Everyone understands that health challenges are part of life. Sharing a little is natural, even helpful sometimes, but when it becomes your main topic, it drains the energy from the room. It shifts the focus from life to loss. Pain is real, but it doesn't have to be your identity. The most inspiring people aren't the ones who are pain-free. They're the ones who refuse to let pain steal their spirit. Choosing to talk about ideas, dreams, funny moments, and hope instead of constant ailments reminds everyone, especially yourself, that you are still fully alive, still fully here, and still worthy of vibrant connection. You start acting like you've already said everything worth saying. You pull back from deep conversations, avoid discussing new ideas, and stick to surface-level topics because you assume that what you know has already been shared, already been heard, already been used up. You sit quietly at family gatherings, you nod along in meetings or discussions, but you don't bring your full voice to the table anymore. It's not that you have nothing left to contribute, it's that you've convinced yourself that people have moved on without needing your input. But they notice. They notice your silence, and they feel the absence of the perspective, humor, and wisdom that used to add richness to every conversation you joined. The tragedy is, your voice still matters, maybe now more than ever. Experience doesn't expire. Insight doesn't become irrelevant just because the world has changed. In fact, change makes it even more valuable. But when you stop offering your thoughts, your ideas, your encouragement, you start fading from the story that's still being written around you. Younger people lose the opportunity to learn from you. Peers lose the spark that only you can bring, and worst of all, you lose the chance to continue shaping the world with your presence. Staying silent feels safe, but it's a slow kind of vanishing. Your words have the power to inspire, to heal, to build bridges between generations. You don't have to deliver grand speeches or lectures. Sometimes just a thoughtful question, a heartfelt story, or a sincere piece of advice can change someone's whole direction. The world around you still needs your voice. Holding it back is not humility, it's withholding a gift that could still do so much good. You cling to outdated grudges like they're treasures. Maybe someone wronged you decades ago, a friend betrayed you, a sibling disappointed you, a colleague overlooked you. At the time, the hurt was real, and maybe you had every right to feel angry. But somewhere along the way, instead of processing it and moving forward, you let that grudge become part of your identity. You bring it up in conversations, you nurse the memory of it, you keep it alive as if it defines you. And while you think you're just sharing your life story, people around you see something different. They see a person trapped in an old wound, someone who can't fully embrace the present because a piece of them is still anchored to the past. Grudges don't just hurt the people they're aimed at, they erode the person holding them. Carrying that bitterness colors everything you touch. It sours your relationships, it hardens your heart, and it quietly isolates you. People can feel the resentment even when you're not talking about it directly. It leaks into your tone, your energy, your ability to connect. And after a while, instead of seeing you as a survivor or a strong individual, they see you as someone who chose anger over healing. The worst part is, the people you're angry at might have moved on, changed, or even forgotten, but you're still paying the price, sacrificing your peace for a grudge that no longer serves you. Forgiveness isn't about pretending it didn't happen, it's about refusing to let it continue to steal your joy. Releasing the old weight gives you space to live lighter, love deeper, and finally step fully into the freedom that's been waiting for you all along. You start believing you have nothing left to learn. Somewhere along the path, the hunger for knowledge that once fueled your growth begins to fade. You tell yourself you've already read enough books, faced enough challenges, solved enough problems. You see new ideas and dismiss them because they don't fit what you already know. Instead of asking questions, you make statements. Instead of leaning in with curiosity, you lean back with skepticism. And even though you may not say it out loud, people around you can feel it, that quiet arrogance that says, "I've seen it all, I know better." It's not wisdom they feel from you, it's stagnation. The most dangerous thing about believing you have nothing left to learn is how it cuts you off from life itself. Learning isn't just for the young, it's the fuel of vitality, creativity, and relevance at every age. When you stop learning, you start shrinking. Your world becomes smaller, your conversations become shallower, your influence becomes weaker. People notice when you stop asking questions, when you stop showing up curious about the world and the people in it. They sense that you are locked in time, trapped in old ideas, while life keeps moving forward without you. There's nothing more inspiring than someone who remains teachable no matter how much they know. It shows humility, strength, and a deep respect for the vastness of life's wisdom. It's not about agreeing with everything new, it's about staying open enough to engage with it, to wrestle with it, to grow from it. The moment you think you've arrived is the moment you start to decline. Staying a student of life, eager, questioning, open keeps your mind sharp, your heart young, and your spirit fully alive. You start withdrawing from the world without even realizing it. Maybe it begins with small things, skipping a social event here, avoiding a phone call there, turning down an invitation because it feels like too much effort. You tell yourself it's just for today, just for this week, but soon it becomes your default. You stay home more, interact less, and slowly build walls around yourself. At first, people check in, they invite you, they reach out, but after enough no's or polite excuses, they start assuming you're not interested anymore. They stop asking, they move on, and before you know it, isolation has crept into your life, not because people abandoned you, but because you quietly pushed them away. Withdrawal doesn't just rob you of company, it steals your connection to life. Relationships, laughter, shared experiences, these are the lifeblood of a rich, meaningful existence at any age. When you retreat too much, you start to lose perspective. Small worries seem bigger, minor aches feel heavier. The world feels colder and more distant, not because it changed, but because you stepped back from it. People notice when you withdraw, even if they don't say anything. They miss your presence, your stories, your laughter, your advice. They wonder where you went, even when you're physically still around. The truth is, staying connected takes work, especially as you get older. It requires energy, vulnerability, and sometimes discomfort. But it's worth it. Staying engaged keeps you vibrant. It keeps your mind active and your heart full. It reminds you that you are still needed, still loved, still part of the beautiful, messy, ever-changing story of the world. And every time you say yes, instead of hiding away, you take one step back into a life that still has so much to offer you.